Hey, I'm Ben from Audiologic and welcome to Tech Tuesdays. Today we're going to be having a look at the Shure MXA range of products and how to get started in the Designer software. We're going to be using the Shure Designer software. Version 4.2 has just been released with a load of new features, and you can find a link for this at the bottom of the video. To start off, we're going to need to create a project. So up in the top left hand side you can see we've got a new project button. I'm going to click this and I'm going to give it the name Audiologic. Once I've created this project, you can see that I can now add a location, and as I'm in our boardroom today, I'm going to create a location called Boardroom. I'll then get a new window pop up, and this is where I start to add devices. So very quickly, I know in our boardroom we've got the Shure MXA910, and then I'm using external processing. So I'm going to drag and drop an MXA910 onto the screen. And you can now see I've got my inputs and my outputs available from the microphone. If I click on coverage map up here, I'm then going to be taken to the physical room. As you can see, it's loaded in with default options for the room size. I'm going to change this. So the room I'm sat in at the moment, I know that the ceiling height is 2.35 meters, the width of the room is 3.5, and the length of the room is 5.5 meters. So you can see I've then got my room and my microphone ready to be configured, and what I'm going to do now is lay out my lobes that's best practice for the room. So this is when, if you've got a floor plan, this is really useful. But for now, I'm going to place the mic where it is within the room. You can see I've got lock to grid on here, so I'm just going to turn that off. So I'm going to turn off snap to grid so I can put the microphone exactly where it's physically positioned in the room. And I actually know that the LED is facing the front of my room, so I'm just going to rotate the microphone quickly. And I can see that I'm actually probably not going to need 8 lobes to cover this room. So I'm going to delete out a couple of lobes. And then I'm left with 6. I'm actually sat at a 9-seater table at the moment, but because the lobes can cover more than just one seating area and the room isn't actually very large, I think I'll actually be able to get away with less lobes. If you want to start from scratch, there's nothing wrong with starting with just the single lobe. And you can see that the default lobe size is on wide. Again, because it's a relatively small room and I want to bring the coverage down, I'm actually going to change the coverage pattern to narrow. This is going to give me a much tighter beam width. It's actually 35 degrees, so even tighter than a shotgun microphone. And that's going to give me a really nice tight pickup, and it means I'm not going to pick up the reflections within the room. If I select the mic, I can then press Add Channel to add in another lobe. I'm going to change this one to match the other one, so I'm going to have a narrow beam coverage. So if I press on the mic, I can then push the Add Channel button. I'm going to change the coverage from wide to narrow and put this into my second seating position. I can then keep repeating this until I've got coverage throughout the whole room. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to each of these lobes to see how they sound. So a good thing to note here is that although we've got 8 lobes available on the MXA910, we don't necessarily need to use them all. Using more lobes means that we're going to use more processing power, more DSP, and it also might mean that we collect reflections around the room that we don't need. Now that we've got the autofocus technology in the lobes as well, they are going to move themselves by up to ½ a meter in any direction. So if you've got a very vibrant talker that's moving around the room, the lobe's actually going to move from the microphone with the talker, so it saves us putting in extra lobes before where we would have needed coverage. So I'm now going to move across to my sync tab. Here I can see both my physical device, which I've got on the AV network here so I can see it, and also the virtual devices that I created a minute ago. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag my physical device on top of my virtual device, and then you're going to see that the Synchronize button illuminates. Under Synchronize, I've got 2 options. I can either push 2 devices, which is going to take the design I've just done on my machine and push it to the microphone, or I can pull to design, which takes the design off of the microphone and puts it on my machine. Pull to design can be really useful if you're going to a site with the MXAs already installed. Maybe you want to take the designs off there either to create a backup copy or maybe just to make a few small changes. Because I don't want to overwrite the existing configuration on the microphone here, I'm going to pull to design. And what you can see is a really quick process to sync the microphone up. Then I get a green tick to say everything's all good. So we've now got configuration on the microphone, we're all good to move on to our next steps. There's still more we can do to keep optimizing the microphone. We've got access within the DSP to EQ curves, high pass filters, automatic gain compensation, and also AEC and noise reduction settings. Tune in the coming weeks if you want to see more of these optimization tips, and if you have any questions, just get in touch.